All right. Hello and welcome to the Cinebums podcast, the podcast about staying in, canceling plans, watching movies, avoiding those friends you don't want to see, and the job you don't want to do. Today is our 420 episode, our first ever 420 episode. This should be coming out right on 420, which is the holiday of canceling plans to stay around and smoke marijuana. Today we have a guest who's one of my oldest friends. Probably second oldest friend to John Nuring, of course. Here we got Nick Gitchell on the podcast today.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be here. Excited to talk about some movies today.
Yeah, welcome, Nick.
Yeah. We're all Glen Ellen guys here. For those who don't know who that is a very tucked away suburb in the middle of the West Chicago suburbs that no one knows about, even if they're from there. But it's very small, down to earth, and tucked away, and that's why John and I are so pleasant and nice as we are, and humble,
Very humble, yeah.
Nick lives down the street from both John and I, so I like to think you're the same way. And unfortunately for Nick, you're there now, but you won't be there forever.
Right, Glen Ellen won't let me leave. I'll be here forever.
Yeah, I've dealt with the same thing. Sometimes it just sucks you back in after you go try to spread your wings somewhere else, and
Brings out the Clippers.
yeah. Nick and I actually did spread our wings earlier in January, late January, early February it was, and we went to a national park, and John has been so gracious to let us play a slideshow of some of our photos and adventures to share some of the things we did while we were out there.
I wish I had a clicker.
Right.
Yeah,
so John/Jamie, can you bring up clip
Jamie,
number one for us? Yeah.
Yeah, what do you want as your establishing shot here? I can't.
You can feel free to go in just chronological order of what I sent.
Okay. Well, here's the first one. I'm guessing this is you guys arriving to Death Valley.
There we go.
Up to the side.
Yeah, so that is us arriving. Good thinking there, John. And actually, that is like kind of the other side of Death Valley. Kind of like it's surrounded by this wall of mountains. And so like we're kind of like driving towards the entrance point, where you kind of have to drive like way high up and deep on the other through that exact thing just to get into there, pretty much.
Yeah, you got to go like up and around to the other side of that mountain range behind there.
How like far of a drive is it from like where you are in LA?
Like 5 hours. So not too bad. But as you can see, it's very it's very way out there, very much so. And we felt very out there, and everything looks like that. Like everything.
A whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
A lot of death.
Yeah, we'd get out of our hotel room and I'd look at it, it would just be like that. that view right there, pretty much.
Should I move on to the next one?
Yeah, move on. No need to linger. We don't need 30 minutes on each one or anything. Oh, nice. There you go. Okay, so that's our first hike, right?
It looks like Mosaic.
Yeah, Mosaic Canyon. Yeah. And fun fact for you, John, I'm pretty sure this, like, there was a lot of Star Wars A New Hope was filmed at Death Valley, and I'm pretty sure this exact location is where like specific scenes are shot, like mainly the Jawas, like when the Jawas first introduced, they pick up R2-D2 and that iconic John Williams score comes in. Yeah, like I think it's this area specifically, like
I can see it.
Yeah, exactly. I think there may be a couple more from here. But yeah, this is our first hike after driving 5 hours. So it was not chill. There was no chill on this trip, John.
But I can already feel it getting hot in here, just being in the environment right
The
now.
intensity building up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
There you
4D over there with this slideshow.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Oh, nice.
Ooh. With
Yeah,
that cool
so
lens flare.
Oh, exactly, man.
Yeah,
But
that's Mesquite,
this
too.
was my personal favorite spot. This was it Mesquite Dunes, Nick?
Mesquite Dunes, yeah.
Mesquite Dunes, yeah. I enjoyed this a lot because there's no set trail. You just get to climb up on all these sand dunes, pretty much.
That's cool. Yeah, the sand looks so smooth. That's wild. Wow.
Yeah, it's very like I don't know, it's like something you wouldn't expect to be here. Which is everything in this park. You
Yeah,
wouldn't
just kind
expect
of
to
like
be
it like comes out of nowhere, and then
Yeah.
you're in it, and it's just
Yeah.
massive, and you're just
Yeah,
surrounded by all
everything,
these giant dunes, and you try to climb up them, and it's like you go, and the sand just falls all around you as you try to climb, so you don't feel like you're moving anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're in the what's the famous desert in the Middle East, like the biggest desert?
Sahara.
Oh, the Sahara.
The Sahara, it's like
yeah.
you're there or something like that. It's not just something you'd picture and just to be in California.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there's the canyon again. For all you stoners out here watching this episode, here's some great hiking photos for you. I just realized to bring that up. You can be like, whoa.
Whoa.
Should I move on to the next one?
Yeah, you can move on.
Okay.
Oh, and so speaking of the dunes, there is Nick on top
Oh,
of the
yeah.
There
dune.
he is.
Yeah.
Oh, that just gives you some real scale of just how
Yeah, wow.
huge
Yeah,
these things
that's
are.
little perspective.
Wow.
I think like Nick wasn't ready to come down yet or something, or I was like ready earlier.
Luke is in much better shape than me when it comes to running up and down dunes.
Luke does it every weekend. Yeah.
But I was doing it, but I was dying still, like I've never made my legs work so hard,
Yeah.
it
was a trek.
because you don't have like you don't have like good footing really ever because the sand is falling, so you're just like, it's like, there's weight being pushed against you pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to walk on the beach, like in
Right.
shoes, just normally. So
Right.
I can't imagine like on an
Everyone's
incline
falling
like that.
into it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I feel like I've seen photos of
Nice.
like this area
Yeah.
before. Yeah, that's cool.
I think you have, because this is like probably one of the most iconic like locations, I think, in the park. It's called Zabriskie Point. So you see, there's photos everywhere of this place for the most part. Yeah, and you might have seen that too, because that's Zabriskie Point right by that landscape we just showed you.
Cool.
We made a point to do sunsets and sunrises on this
Nice.
trip.
You gotta get those golden hours.
Yeah, and all right, and so that was sunset. This is sunrise.
Sunrise.
Water basin.
Yeah, that is the lowest point in America, I believe.
282 feet below sea level, lowest point in the continental U.S. And you can almost when you're down there, you can almost feel the pressure just from being at the low point in the land, like from being so
the
low.
air feels different.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is like 5, 6 a.m. so we can see the sunrise, and I'm barely waking up, and there's like no one out here really but us. There's maybe like a couple other people, and we're just staring at this thing, and I'm just like, this is so insane right now.
Was it like did it get pretty cold at night and in the morning, or was it pretty warm the whole time?
I'd say it was cold a majority of the time.
Majority of the time.
Yeah. To me at least.
It was like probably 30s, 40s at night, and then daytime it would get up to like 70 if we were at sea level elevation, but we did some where we were up at like 6,000 feet.
Right.
It was pretty cold during the day still.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And a majority of the time we are driving, like we're just driving, hauling across this park, and it all looks like this, as you see. And you feel yourself slowly going down a lot of times, or slowly coming back up, and so you can't really tell how like low we really are, or something like that, what elevation we're really at. I'd say the one time I felt really hot was when we were on those dunes. For the most part, I felt kind of chilly. Yeah, same thing. So that's all salt flats. I know you're a big salt flat nerd, John.
Yeah,
everybody loves salt flats.
I've driven through them in Utah plenty of times. So yeah,
I've tried to like show
reminds me of
pictures
that.
of these to people, and I would be like, "So that is all salt flats," and they all look at me like,
Ooh, yeah.
I give a fuck, you know.
Ooh, wow, yeah.
All right, so maybe the coolest thing we saw was this crater. I would say the photos almost don't even do it justice, because the eyes pick up like more of the depth of it possibly, and how scary it is. Yeah, but yeah, we kind of did a loop around the border of this massive crater. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that looks cool. I think this one might be another view of it.
Oh
Is
no,
that the
that's
same one?
That's a second crater. So when you get up to the top of this big crater, I think it's called, I'm gonna butcher this name, Ubahibi crater or something like that.
At least you remember.
Yeah. And then once you get up to the top of it and you're just overlooking like that big crater, you look over, I don't know which direction you're looking, but you just like look over off into the distance and you see this little crater, and I think it's called Little Hebe, is the official name of it.
Right. Yeah, that's just the smaller crater, but I like the shot you can get of it, because you could see the full thing, and then you get the landscape in the background.
Yeah.
You know, people love it when you analyze your own photography, of course.
Yeah, we got real Ansel Adams over here.
Right, Ansel Adams. Wow, John, deep cut there. Wow. And so this is just me being like, oh, here's another angle of the crater. You know what I mean? Because every single angle looked different and really cool, and so
yeah, that's sweet.
and you can actually hike down into the crater too.
Yeah, you can kind of see the paths, like if you look along the back
Oh,
of
yeah.
the picture. And what the picture doesn't really capture is they're so steep. It had to be like minimum 45-degree incline on those paths. And you would just have
geez.
like it was me and Luke in the park, and then the only other visitors there at the time really just seemed like a group of retirees, off enjoying themselves. And you would see them with their walking sticks and their iron knees just plowing down this canyon, no problem at all. And I'm just dying walking around the rim, like, how are they doing this?
Yeah.
It was incredible.
That's another thing about Death Valley, is Nick and I were by far the youngest people in this park.
Oh, I like 40
I think
years.
most young people didn't take off the weekdays to go. So we were like, we'd be at a breakfast at like one of the only hotels that's in the park, and everyone else is like clearly retired, and just like living the dream, done working. So they're here at Death Valley in the weekday, and then it's just me and Nick.
Yeah, they're closer to death, so they gotta
right. So go where
it was calling them. Yeah,
right.
Gotta take in those views.
Yeah, the dunes again.
The footprints.
Right, which they weren't everywhere. So sometimes you'd be like, I gotta follow maybe where other people went. Maybe that's the good way to go. I don't know. And so that is where Nick and I decided, okay, we're going there. Like we're gonna climb up to there, because that is the highest peak we could see of all these dunes. So we made we pointed out a destination, and we went for it pretty much.
Nice.
Dang.
Yeah.
I think that's from the road, like on our way out.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yeah, our last overlook.
Oh, and that's a very scary photo.
This is, I think this is like your classic, what you see on the Death Valley Drive, just all the dust that gets kicked
that's
up.
literally side of the road. We just like,
wow, yeah.
That's not even like a hiking spot. That's not even like a destination. We just like drove past this, and we're like, look at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is our trip.
Yeah, incredible park.
yeah. Nick and I went to town for sure. It was a lot. It was a lot for sure. And I do remember at the end of it, I was like, I really need to get back to civilization right now. I have been very unsettled this whole time by how quiet and scary this place is, but also like this was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure it was probably nice going like in the middle of the week too, because I can imagine this is a place that gets pretty packed on like weekends.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, but that is like stop one of a lot of the California national parks I'm trying to do. I don't know if you did any during your time in California, John.
Yeah, we
I
went
assume
to
so, right?
we just went to Joshua Tree. That was in November. And that, I mean, it's kind of similar that it's like very much a desert. But yeah, I love Joshua Tree.
Yeah, I'm going there in June. That's the plan.
Nice. There's this you should do this hike. I think it's called like 49 or 39 Palms, but it's like all this barren wasteland, and you kind of go over this mountain, and there's just this like oasis of all these palm trees and water. Like it's just like a crazy like natural thing to just like be there in the middle of this dry desert.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, California's so cool though. So many cool things.
Yeah, after this like particular trip, I really want to do and since I'm planning on doing Joshua Tree, I really want to do a national park here that involves like trees and woods, because I've been doing these heavy like desert ones.
Yeah.
So get the little switch up.
Yeah, go to Yosemite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really want to do that. I think maybe for me it's a more ideal getaway is like something that is like more tree oriented and there's like a body of water there and stuff like that. But yeah, Nick did Sequoia.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Sequoias is incredible. You're on another planet, it feels like. It's with the scale of those trees.
Yeah. That's what I used to live in Northern California, and yeah, it's just way different from being in Southern California, where like all the hikes, there's just these giant redwoods and stuff. Yeah, those, I don't know that I ever saw like the sequoias, but yeah, I mean, the trees are just insane.
Yeah. Just whenever you have something on that grand of a scale, you just get to stand next to it.
Yeah.
You think about how tiny you are. It's always fun.
Yeah. And you went during the winter too. Or
yeah.
Not during the winter, but there was snow on the ground.
Yeah, we went like late spring. So they were coming off like a heavy snowfall. So when we were out there hiking, it was, we were probably walking on top of like 4 feet of snowpack, I would say. Like we weren't even on the trail. We were just walking on top of 4 feet of snow the whole time, like following other people's footprints. It was a
like
crazy time.
The dunes, but snow in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, I don't know, something about hikes where you can like follow a river or something and it just leads you to a waterfall. Those have to be my favorite. They're just so cool. They give you a nice sense of accomplishment at the end. So yeah,
I think there was a waterfall at the end of like when you were walking on the snow then?
Yeah, there was one we did. I can't remember the name of it, but it was essentially like the trailhead is just at a parking lot, and like you see a little tiny end of a river, and then it's really more of a creek, and you just like follow it up this mountain. You walk for probably 3 or 4 hours, and you finally get to the top, and it's just this huge waterfall coming off the mountain from all the snow melt forming this creek. And it was one of the coolest hikes I've ever been on, I think. You just have the sequoias all around you as you walk up this mountain.
That sounds awesome.
You feel like an ant just walking in this giant world.
Yeah, I definitely felt like an ant in Death Valley. I was, and good thing you were very like responsible and would like think of things like first aid and things like other things of that nature. And I'm like, yeah, because something definitely could happen out here to us.
Yeah.
We're very on our own right now.
Yeah, the goal is never to need the first aid, but you want it if you do.
Need that peace of mind. Yeah.
Well, and I think the last thing to bring up from Death Valley is that I forgot to mention is there was one night, it was the first night we got in, and Nick had to go see stars, and I was like, and I was tired, but I was like, all right, we'll do it. But also we had to go to a place that was really out there, So we drove like deep into the dark night, into the middle of like,
We wanted no
just,
light pollution.
yeah, no light pollution scenario. And I must say, it was incredible. The sky was like, I've never seen the sky like that before in my life. But I was also like looking around me, and I'm like, I can't see a thing right now, and we're just in the middle of this, like, we're just in the middle of all this right now.
I'm pretty sure that's how murders happen. It's two guys go off into the dark.
Right. Well, and at one point I was like, I have to turn on my car lights. Like, what if there's like a pack of wolves or some shit out here, you know? Like, but it was really cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, that has to be, I don't know, probably one of those rare moments where I'm like equally amazed by what I'm looking at and terrified by what's around me. Because it's like pitch black, really scary. You have no idea what to expect, but at the same time, you just look up and there's just all these stars that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, I was like kind of going back and forth between the sky, and I would look like I would look down from the sky and be like, this is not a good idea.
Yeah, I think we made it like 10 minutes before we caught up with our senses.
I was like, okay, let's go. And like even the drive itself, like to get out there, I was like, this is terrifying in itself. Like I could barely see right now, you know. Anyways, so thank you, John, and all of our listeners for indulging our Death Valley vacation.
Yes.
First and foremost, I hope it inspires Adam Sandler to shoot a movie there.
That'd be great.
The typical Sandler vacation movie. But yeah, anyways, this is our 420 episode. And again, our guest is Nick Gitchell. And the reason why our guest is Nick Gitchell is because Nick and I have smoked weed a few times together, here and there. You know, we're known to do it from time to time. You know,
friends for many years.
Yeah. Well, we didn't always. It's not like, you know, we're childhood friends. You know, but you know, and so what's interesting when you're childhood friends, kind of like John, you and I, like, you know, you take a break when you become an adult because you know, we go to different colleges and, you know, whatnot, stuff like that. But then, you know, you reconnect. We reconnected later because we needed a roommate, and so and it was like, hey, it's been a while, but let's live together, you know, blah blah blah. So like, I feel like we have like two different kind of like John, how you and I have the podcast in like high school. Nick and I have like St. James, and then being roommates in our early 20s.
I see, the thing that started it and the thing that reconnected you.
The full circle thing. So like two very different times, you know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So being this a 420 episode, I have like a rare thing to bring up actually, because this was not part of the plan. I wanted to like come on and do this episode to really talk more about a lot of my like weed ways and my stoner degeneracy, which I'll still talk about, but I am actually 2 weeks weed free right now. Wow. So I'm so sorry to everyone who wanted me to be blazed out of my mind as usual, but I'm not. It sucks. It's the fucking worst. But yeah, I'm like 2 weeks weed free. I started smoking weed at 18, and I pretty much did it every day of my life till like this year. So that's like a decade. So you can definitely say I did that. You know, you can definitely say that I've had that experience. But yeah, I've wanted to do it for a little bit now, and just because after you do something like that for 10 years every day, you start to think, okay, like, you know, what the hell, like, where's this? Can I do it? Can I live life without it? Blah blah blah. Like, and you start to recognize how dependent you are on it. And I did realize last year, I was like, okay, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I have not slowed down by any means. I'm doing it as much as ever. Like I genuinely have a cigarette addiction to this almost, if any. And I'm just yeah, I'm smoking it like it's cigarettes. So I was I kind of wanted to just like, I don't know, to learn to live life without it. And it hasn't been easy being in reality, I will say. But you know, it's definitely like I realize I've been realizing things on like in terms of dealing with my anxiety in real, like the way everyone else has to, rather than just having the crutch of weed to deal with it. It's like just, I don't know. I think it's making me a better person. I'd like to think. And so yeah, that's what's going on with that. But I feel
Nice.
strong. I'm sleeping. I'm sleeping okay. I'm not suffering too much, you know. I'm fairly productive as well.
Nice. Well,
Congrats,
good.
dude.
Good for you. Good for you, Luke. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
thank
is,
you.
that's not an easy feat to do either.
Right.
That
No,
is,
no, it's not. And it was definitely like a thing it was daunting, but what I did was I didn't do it really cold turkey. I slowly churned off to where it was like I would go whole days not smoking weed. I would wait till the end of the day to do it. And when I don't know, doing it like that, I found easier than just stopping. Because then when I decided to actually stop, it was like, okay, I've already been not doing it as much as as I have been. So it made it easier. But not to say that like those first few days I was like, are we okay? Are we doing all right? Are we making this work? You know, blah blah blah. And and there were days, especially the very hard part is after you work a long hard day and
oh, I bet.
you're used to your nightly joint or pen or whatever, and you're just craving that, you know, for your relief. You know, that's what I really
Mhm.
miss most of all is the
Mhm.
relief. Because I'm not I don't I try not to drink too much either. I'm not like, because I used to do that a lot. But so now because I don't do either, I don't have relief, you know. And
I think you brought up good points about like your anxiety and stuff too, because I think what I forget sometimes is I like to get high to like have that relief, but then at the same time, it also sort of heightens my anxiety a lot of the time too. So I forget that there's a little bit of both that you get. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
I'm a huge overthinker. I'm a huge overthinker, and when I stopped smoking weed, I really realized how much I do overthink and how much I rile myself up, you know. And
mhm.
I think also weed makes you comfortable with your overthinking a lot, which is why I have been so into weed. Is it like it puts you in a good place to like overthink like comfortably almost. Yeah, like I guess coping mechanisms for anxiety that I haven't had are coming to light. Like I'm realizing them now because I'm not stoned all the time, you know.
Yeah,
But
nice. Yeah, I
anyway,
get. I don't know if we should all go into like our like weed experiences, or if we just yeah. I guess I don't know where you wanna.
where do we go from
Like
there?
I don't want to bring up my own to make it seem like hey I also have or if that's how you want to like transition uh
Well,
into
yeah,
like our
that's
420 episode.
right. Well, that's just
Yeah.
me now, you know, but I don't want to
Uh-huh.
act like now that because of that, I'm still very pro weed, you know, and I'm still
You
um
narc, man. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Total
exactly.
square now, Luke, man. Used to be cool.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to be cool. We've lost followers now, but I don't know. I've had like a lot of like weed has been a very big part of my life for sure.
Hmm.
As Nick has been my roommate, he knows very much so that it has. And that's been a lot of my early 20s. And being that we're talking about Pineapple Express today, I like just weed in that movie and just like the lifestyle of that movie, what that movie preaches has really aligned with that for me, you know. Like I think I saw Pineapple Express at 18 and I had just become like a stoner at the same time. And I remember seeing it and like being like, whoa, this movie, like opening up my world right now, you know, like I relate to everything in this movie all of a sudden, you know. This movie's a role model for me or something like that.
I mean, it's one of these movies that it came out I think like perfect time for our generation. That it's I don't know, just rewatching it this past time, I was just thinking of how much of like the vocabulary of like teenagers was based on like this and super bad and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so it's like very influential in a lot of ways. And I think, yeah, it's also around the time when kids our age start doing, start drinking and smoking weed.
Do you think
and
doing
so,
weed, doing drugs is
it's
cool?
cool.
Yeah. Well, like, you know how like Superbad has like endlessly requotable lines that like you grew up hearing over and over again. This movie has that in the same way, but I feel like it's a little more cult. Like I'm like watching the scene with the teacher, for instance, and I just hear so many lines that I like people would say like over and over again, like time to suck today's dick, like that line. So like I would hear people say all the time, just like that whole scene is quoted pretty much.
Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, it was just funny rewatching this, and I felt like I was transported back into being a teenager and hearing kids at like lunch just like say like especially when Danny McBride goes like thug life when he's like going through all the guns. Like, it's just there's like those little lines that I've just kids said all the time. So yeah, it brought me back to that period in life. And this was totally like for me, at least in my experience, this was a movie that seemed like you had to like in order to be cool. Like everyone liked it, and if you didn't
even if you didn't
see
get it, if you didn't get it, you were like, right, which I in high school I wouldn't have gotten it at all.
Oh, and I don't even remember the first time that I watched Pineapple Express, because I definitely don't think I saw it in the theater. I was probably
Later
a little
on,
too
then.
young. Yeah, later on.
So
but
I
yeah.
saw it. I was at DePaul, and I had been in temporary housing, which sounds weird. Sounds like I'm being covered by like social workers or something, but I didn't get into the regular dorms because I submitted my like housing papers late or something like that. So I had to like go to a temporary dorm and wait to get into the normal dorms. And they finally, like at the end of the first semester, got me into a normal dorm. And I moved in with this guy who was definitely a stoner, and he had all this like psychedelic art on the wall. And I got in there, and I was like, yeah, this will work. Like I can live with this guy. And it was like finals week, and we weren't doing anything, and we just watched Pineapple Express, and that was my first experience watching it. And then that guy ended up flunking out of college. Like we went away for winter break, and I came back to school, and I had a new roommate, basically. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. But also we did watch TV all of finals week, so that makes sense why he didn't make it. When did you first see Pineapple Express, Nick?
I think the first time I watched Pineapple Express was in high school. 'Cause I remember I got the DVD, like I bought it from this guy I used to work with who just didn't want it anymore. So I got it for like $3 or something, like a real nice deal like that. Just remember being excited
What a
about
deal.
it. And so yeah, I like watched Pineapple Express before I'd ever actually smoked weed or knew what it was like.
Right, yeah.
And I remember I loved the movie. It was a fun adventure. Even having no idea.
Even
like,
though you had no context for anything.
Yeah, like my whole understanding of weed at that time was like weed is a drug that makes you dumb and silly. And the whole movie, James Franco and Seth Rogen are dumb and silly. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. I'll quote Nick because like Nick and I have had a lot of conversations smoking weed, especially in our apartments. And I remember you would always say this is what you thought about like stoners and people who did alcohol and like high school stuff. You're like, that is for stupid people. Because we grew up very like Catholic and like kind of very like more sheltered, I'd think. And so like I felt the same way. Like when I was in high school, I would see the stoners who'd come in and they would be like using all these like terms that I didn't know. Like I would hear like bong be said or something like that, and it'd be like a foreign language or something like that.
Yep.
And I would just be like, what a bunch of morons throwing their life away as if I'm doing so much better. You know what I mean? Like I'm not really doing much with my life.
Yeah. And I actually remember, speaking of high school and 420, I remember one year at Glenbard South on 420, some stoners like spray painted 420 on the doors of the school. Do you remember that at all?
I don't know.
I bet that caused an uproar.
Yeah,
right.
It was
the biggest deal.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't like on the doors, it was like on the windows, like next to the doors by I don't even remember what part of the school it was, but it's like across from the football field. And I remember thinking it was like funny, but then also like the same thing, thinking like, wow, these like idiots, they think that's so like cool, like they're just spending their time spray painting 420 on a window, which is kind of dumb when you think about it, because it's like, who cares, but yeah, that's like a vivid memory of 420, because I remember also like in high school, kids like stoner kids talking about 420 and like not really understanding anything at all, other than it's like, okay, the stoner kids are gonna go smoke weed this day and come to class, and
right. Yeah, see, I probably didn't even know what 420 was in high school, like, so if it was on the door and people were talking about it, I would probably be like, what is that?
Right over your head.
Yeah, exactly. so ignorant,
They just put the date on the windows for some reason today. Yeah, it's I
don't know. I guess Pineapple Express, through talking about Pineapple Express, I can talk more about weed experiences, because that's how much it co-aligns. Pineapple Express opens in a very classical manner, almost like it's an old like classical mystery movie or something like that, because it's it opens with Bill Hader in almost like a Doctor Strange love-ish like war room scene, and he's trying weed for the first time. They're asking him, "You've been smoking it for 7 minutes. Like, how do you feel?" And he's obviously like, "This is fantastic right now." Like the line specifically is, "I feel like a stick of butter melting over a big stack of flapjacks," or something like that. Which I can say with experience, that is how it feels. It feels pretty phenomenal. This is one of the most classic like Bill Hader scenes in movies, for me personally. I think it's like a great one, along with him in Superbad. Like I think Rogen and like when Rogen and Evan Goldberg wrote their first like scripts and they used Bill Hader, like he knocks those roles out of the park.
Yeah, he's very memorable as the cop in Superbad too.
Yeah. And even in his short screen time in this, he's like gold, arguably one of the best things in the movie. Even though he just gets that brief scene.
He just does that like old-timey voice really well too,
right. He's like, "Yes, what is that, sir?" Yeah, and this movie it gets out and running, man, because then it just immediately cuts to Seth Rogen, and he's on the radio, and he's saying what every stoner was thinking at the time, which is like, if marijuana isn't legal in this many years, I have no faith left in humanity, which now is such a time capsule now, obviously. Because here we are in 2023, where that same guy runs a weed company, and weed is very, very legal now and very accessible. Like back in the day, this was the mindset. And this is what I was thinking too, even though I hadn't even been like smoking weed that long. I do remember thinking like, God, it's such bullshit that it's not legal. You know what I mean? And like, but it ended up being legal within like 5 years. So it's not like it wasn't like that big of a deal. It's not like I waited, that long. Like there's this long, like, oh my God, like when will it ever be legal?
Yeah. I mean, I think Well, it's interesting now that we're all in 3 different states and it's legal in all 3 of
Oh
those
yeah,
right
that's
now.
true.
By the time we were 21 and like able to buy it legally, like it was legal by then.
It was Colorado and like Seattle that had just
Washington,
like
yeah.
or Washington, I mean, yeah, like so they had just become the
They're the two big
like
ones.
the safe havens. Were like, God, I gotta go there, you know. They're with the times, you know, that sort of thing. But now even like Illinois, which is crazy, Illinois has legal weed. It's a crazy thing to see. You drive down Roosevelt Road and there's like cannabis across from the Guitar Center, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like Oak Brook has marijuana that it sells.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of, I wonder what it's like now for high schoolers where weed is legal. I mean, I guess it's probably still just like alcohol, you know, like having to get weed from like an older kid.
I got my older brother, but went to the dispensary
yeah.
for me. Yeah.
It was weird. Like it definitely felt more like, I don't know, like a bigger deal when we were in high school because it was still illegal. So it was,
right.
It was still kind of like the stoner kids had this kind of like
there's a
badassery
aspect
to it. Yeah, it's
exactly.
like, whoa, wow,
right.
They're like willing to risk it.
They're willing to risk it all. Yeah.
Just for a little taste. Yeah.
right. Well, and that's what this movie really brings back to me. Like, I still think this movie like ages really well. I still think it's hilarious, but it's still such a thing of this era where I think we're the last generation that can relate to this idea of it being illegal, to where there's a guy named Ted Jones who sells weed to all the like this whole community, you know what I mean? Like, to where you can pull up the side of the road and you're smoking weed in your car and you're concerned about a cop like pulling up on you, that sort of thing. Like, we're probably the last generation that you'd have to like find ways to do it. Now it's so easy to do it, but back then it was like, I have to sneak around, I have to go park up, I have to go find a secret spot to smoke, and while I'm doing it I'm very paranoid like that someone's gonna see, or you have to go into the woods to do it. Like, it's all about finding out how to do it. Now it's like not a problem, but back then, like, this, you know, not so too long ago, that's how it was. And as he says in the car too, he's like, you have to deal with a drug dealer. You know, have you ever had to deal with a drug dealer? You know, and the line I specifically relate to is, they act like they're your friend, but they're not your friend, you know. And that's kind of how it goes. Exactly. You would always act like you're friends with whoever you're buying pot from. And I would always be like talking to who I'm buying weed from, and it would be like, yeah, man, let's chill soon, definitely. And it would be like, we're never chilling. Like, it's only when I need weed that we're chilling, you know?
Yeah, I think that's like a very deliberate part of like the character dynamic between Seth Rogen and James Franco, is that like they're kind of this weird friends not friends type of relationship, and then they just get thrown into like, okay, now you are friends, like you by almost like forced into being friends in a way.
Right, they're forced to being like roommate friends because of the situation. And you know, like before that, Saul really wants it to be like, he sees it as friends, because I think weed dealers do see it that way. Like, they're like, I like, all these people I sell to are also my friends, you know, blah blah blah. And like, I think that's a great way to characterize Saul, that he's like a lonely guy who you know, he sits around selling to people all day and it's mainly business, but he sees Rogen as the one who's his friend, you know what I mean? Because he has that one guy who comes up, like Chris or whatever, like while he's hanging out there. And he treats Chris like total shit when Chris comes in, but he's so nice to Seth when he's in there, you know? So
just lingers, man.
Linger. Yeah. He's like, lingerer. And he's like, you told him I was going to sell Percocet. What the fuck?
Yeah, I love that scene, because you can see it's what Dale wants to have happen, where he just gets to knock on the door, get his stuff, and get out of there. And then Saul does that with these other people, but won't let Dale go.
Right,
Just
right.
kinda
See,
keeps
he
him
wants
around.
to be, yeah, he wants to be in and out as well. But for him, it's not the same. Like he has to sit down and like, and be like, so what's going on? He has to put on a thing first, and it takes like 30 minutes to an hour, and they talk about all these things and everything.
Yeah, I think he like walks in on Saul having an existential crisis about whether to pull the plug
Right,
on his
Yeah,
grandma.
yeah.
And it's like it's not
Yeah.
even a situation that's in the realm of possibility right now. He's just thinking one day in the future.
Right,
It's like
yeah.
exactly the type of conversation you're not
Right.
looking to have when you go.
Right, yeah. He's like, let's not go down that road.
He's like, I could talk about this for hours, but yeah, not right now.
Yeah, you could tell he's freaking him out as he brings up the conversation. But this scene in general is like probably it's one of my favorite movie scenes like ever, if I really wanted to break it down. Like in the middle of a movie that is very much trying to play along genre and is trying to be like an action comedy for most of it. This scene is very, to me, out of like real life, and it feels so real every time I watch it. It's been like a stoner religious scene to me in a way, like because I've always been like, God, no one has captured how real like a situation like this can be. Like everything from like the music, like kicking, like the jazz music and the vibe, and the dopest dope I've ever smoked, and like the way like every time you pick up from a weed dealer, they're like, this right here is so
bag.
you're like, yeah, they're like, this is like, you're like, how's this stuff I'm buying? You're like, it's fire. Like every weed dealer will be like, this is the best. Like, and I'm always like, is it, or is it the same shit? You know what I mean? Like they always have to act like it's so much better than the last, you know what I mean? And he has like this whole story about it, and but then you smell, but they always sell you on it because you'll smell it and you're like, oh my God, this is incredible. I'm getting the best right now. Yeah, and then the whole thing with the cross joint is
That's iconic.
Is iconic. I used to like, yeah, it still is a goal of mine to roll a cross joint. I never have. I don't know, Nick, if you ever have.
I have not personally tried one, but I've seen them in action before. In college, some kids that try to roll them, and the scene where they're trying to figure out how to light it, and it's like Seth Rogen has to go with 2 lighters.
Yeah, you need a friend to help.
Like, another, like you need a partner to help.
But Franco even says that he's like, I can't light it alone or something. He's like so sad.
It is sad, yeah.
Like thinking back to the one I saw in college, I'm pretty sure they had a third guy just like hold it there for him, so that one could do the lighter and the other guy could do the other.
So the other guy,
it's like a 3 people excursion.
So one guy's not even holding it himself then. I don't know. I think this movie also introduced the idea of the cross joint to the world. Now we're getting really deep into stoner stuff, but I don't think the cross joint, I don't think people would be rolling cross joints like this often, if it weren't for Pineapple Express. Like most definitely not. And the way that like they introduced the cross joint as if like it actually does matter, that there is a trifecta of joint smoking power, and that you're not just smoking way more weed, you know what I mean? Like I think sells a lot of people on the idea of the cross joint.
I mean, next is kind of when he does get to leave, and then it's the thing that the catalyst for everything else, when he's going, says he has to go serve Ted or whatever, and
right.
And then he's
which real quick, I love his job a lot. I am a process I don't even remember, like, I'm a process server. Like when he tries to explain it.
Like subpoenas and okay.
Yeah. Disguise. He's like disguise.
He's like, James Franco's like repeating everything he says, but it's like clearly he doesn't really get it still. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you process. Yeah, and he's like, you got a great job. You get to do nothing and smoke weed all day. I wish I had that. It's like,
You
what
too.
What are you talking about? Didn't think of that, huh? You missed your whole life.
Like I do have a great job. Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, going back into like I guess the origins of this movie real quick, so we can cover that before we talk about the plot a little bit more. James Franco was supposed to be Dale. Seth was supposed to be Saul.
Oh, really?
Before when they casted it. But James Franco insisted on playing the more challenging, the more like, I guess, not him type role, to give him more of a challenge as an actor. And I was actually like listening to a podcast about 127 hours earlier this week, ironically, and apparently Danny Boyle, the director of 127 hours, he saw Pineapple Express and was like, okay, now I know he can do this role now, which is interesting because it's a very different role. But he's like, I know Franco can do this role now because he was so dedicated in Pineapple Express that I think he can pull the role of being, speaking of hiking, of being stuck between a canyon and having to cut your arm off and talk to yourself the whole time role. Even though this is a silly stoner role, like Franco is very, like, you could say almost like method in this, like compared to other things. Yeah, he's very, very good in this, because that, this is not like him how he was at all,
I can just kind of like picture Franco and Rogen switching roles, and I just feel like this is just so perfect. Like,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to imagine that being as good as this, but I mean, who knows?
Right. And I think Seth is a very good, funny, straight man in this too. Like, in a way that he's also like very funny the way he bounces off of him, and that, like, the dynamic in this is so iconic, and it's why like the Franco Rogen dynamic became like what it was, and why they were like, before all the stuff with Franco went down the past year, but why they ended up doing like a Kanye music video, why we have like This Is the End and The Interview and all this stuff, along with the casting. Essentially, for writing this movie, Seth Rogen and his partner Evan Goldberg, they were trying to write a movie. They sent maybe, I don't know, 100, like within 100 ideas to Judd Apatow. Judd Apatow saw them. He said, no, you guys should write a movie about a stoner who gets into trouble with his dealer, kind of like this, basically. Yeah, then they wrote the movie, like, I think within, like, very quickly after that, because I think, like, Judd Apatow knew what would up their alley. They definitely nailed it, because it became a cult thing. It's not like Superbad, where it was something that they wrote for years when they were in high school or anything like that.
Yeah, it seems like Judd Apatow has a really good, I don't know, putting people into like
their wheelhouse.
Yeah, exactly, and getting like the best out of them in a way.
Yeah.
And this was like golden age of like Judd Apatow produced comedies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which we great one.
Yeah. Which we haven't done any yet, and so this is our first one, really. But yeah, it's over the run of like when Apatow and Rogen teamed up, and so they made a string of things within those years. So it's like, Knocked Up, Superbad, and this all were produced and released within a span of, I think, a few years. Like, I think they were making them all at the same time. So he sees a murder in Ted Jones's house. He tosses a joint out, and Ted Jones comes out, like, because they're like, oh my God, someone saw us. And he, because he's trying to figure out who he saw, who it might be, he takes a hit of the joint, and he's like, oh, this is Pineapple Express. I know already from the taste of it, because that's how it works usually.
It's very easy to tell, you know.
He's that in tune with like weed, which I've always wanted to act like, you know, with weed. I've always wanted to act, oh yeah, like I can tell which strain this is from the taste. It's like, nah,
Yeah.
it's just weed. For the most part, you know. And then it like the movie shifts from like a lot of more of stoner day in the life to full blown like. And what I love about this movie is like while there is like the idea of there is real danger, but there's a lot of the idea of like these guys are stoned the whole time, so they have that paranoia in their mind. So how would they react to this, and how much more complicated does this like situation get when you're thinking of it like that these guys are stoned all the time, you know? And like the fact that he runs into his apartment and he's like, a cop, a lady, and a guy. And he's like, a cop, a lady, and a guy? That's like a massacre. And he's like, no, it was just a guy.
What happened to the lady?
Yeah, what
The lady was the cop.
Although he comes in shouting too, just like at the top of his lungs, and just all to tell him like, "Hey man, I got neighbors. You know, keep it down. You can't be shouting about the shot."
And he fucking shot him, and his brains blew everywhere.
That's why I think that scene specifically is why I think Rogen is better in this role than Franco, because there's so much screaming. He nails
that moment, you know what I mean? Like those moments, he really nails. And oh man, and I forgot this moment before. He's like, I visited my girlfriend and went like, and he's like, what? You sucked on her titties when you visited your girlfriend? And he's like, no, I just made out with her. I did that to make it seem cool. But yeah, and then when he's like, we gotta get the F out of here. Just let's go. We gotta prematurely evacuate.
Like, do we get the snacks? Roll-ups.
Yeah.
I wrote down their emergency supplies they grabbed because I liked it so much. It was like, quick, we need weed, we need snacks, food, fruit roll-ups, and that was it. That's all they said.
Weed, snacks, fruit roll-ups. Let's get the F out of here.
Yeah, the last thing he mentions is so specific. Fruit roll-ups. Yeah. Fruit
roll-ups.
Just like generic.
I noticed there's fruit roll-ups product placement in this movie, and they did it very well, like real sneaky like that. They dropped that one fruit roll-ups line, and then later on in the movie, when Dale was over at the girlfriend's house, and Saul's hanging out front, he just got a fruit roll-up and he's making a face in it and putting it on his face, and some more fruit roll-up product placement. I love it. I love that. I
forgot that. Yeah.
Good catch.
Yeah, and then when they're in the woods and then they start to have like paranoia, that's like going back to real like stoner things. Like I've never done that, ran through the woods like, but maybe I've like wanted to, you know what I mean? Where like you like an idea pops into your mind and you get paranoid and you fixate on it, and then you realize like later, oh my god, that was just so like in my head, that sort of thing.
Tweaking.
But yeah, tweaking. Yeah, like the idea of what if they triangulate or whatever the word is, triangulate the phones like Saddam, like again, very, very 2000s. That's how they got Saddam. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually then, so then afterwards they fall asleep and it's 3:00 in the afternoon, and one of my favorite scenes then is when they're just in the woods with that like nice music playing, and then they're just kind of like leapfrogging and
it's just a very stoner, peaceful like scene. And also a shout out to David Gordon Green, because I feel like we shit on him a lot on this podcast because he's made those Halloween movies, and we tend to talk about the Halloween movies, but which Nick we've watched together. But David Gordon Green is in a position specifically because he comes from directing some good things, and there's a lot of good moments in this that I feel like are really well directed and really well shot, such as like that these montages, such as them like smoking in the woods. Like that is a very like beautifully shot scene, and as well as like later when they give the marijuana to the miners and they're smoking with the miners and there's another great musical drop. I think that sequence is very well like shot as well, and very well, just the like both scenes are just such a vibe, and they're just very cool as well. Like I can watch those on a loop.
Yeah, it's another good call with the miners scene when the kids just like dancing too. It's
It's
so
like
funny.
the song's like Coconut Girl by some reggae group, but it's a great song too. And I don't think we've ever brought this up in scores and soundtracks before in that series, but it makes me think that I should on another episode, because this has a very nonstop soundtrack that we haven't brought up yet. Like it opens with Electric Avenue. And like Electric Avenue's, I think Electric Avenue is in a lot of movies, but it's super memorable in this, like specifically just in that opening credits where he's serving everybody, and then the Hispanic people drive on up and they're listening to it too, and they're like, take that shit to another level, like it's just, it's great. Every single needle drop is great.
Yeah, it's actually I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience too, but back in the day when people still listen to like radio in cars and not just like podcasts and music. I've
right.
been,
he's calling in and stuff.
I've been like next to someone. This was like shortly after I got my license, but we were listening to the same radio station at the same time, and I could see them like singing to the song that I was listening to, and that was like that scene was like, oh my god, I forgot that was like
that could happen.
We would listen to the same things while we were in the car. It's
very much a time capsule again.
Nostalgia.
But then they go to Dan. We get introduced to Dan. We've already gotten introduced to Danny McBride before, because he's because Craig Robinson, of course, plays the hitman. I want to get their names right. I'm on Letterboxd. I'm not going to get the names right, but it's Craig Robinson and Kevin Corrigan, which is a great duo. Kevin Corrigan is an actually legendary actor. He's in he's in everything. And happens to be in this with Craig Robinson, and they just, I don't know, that they're just as a duo are so funny for some reason. Like everything they say is like, you got some drugs, or he's like, you used to not give a fuck about discretion. And I think this is like one of the first Danny McBride roles where we all got introduced to Danny McBride, and he really steals the movie every time he's in it. And I find him just so hilarious. He is also incredibly quotable. He's like, it is my cat's birthday today, and every day I make him his favorite dessert. It's a cold sore, never had one, so started to cry.
There's like this nice, like sweet innocence to him almost a little bit. He's just like, he says just like these nice, like matter of fact things, and he's a super likable character, and just the best like running gag throughout the whole thing is how he gets shot, and it's just like, how is he not dead all these different times.
I think he gets shot 7 times total or something.
In the movie. Gets a bong smashed over his head, and then his head slammed into the wall. And
oh my god, the fight that they get into when Saul and Dale go over to Red's house has to be one of my favorite fight scenes in all of movie history that I've ever watched. It's just their reactions to like what getting hit by these everyday household items are so realistic, and I love it. Like the whole thing starts with Red throwing an ashtray. And I forget which one of them he hits, but it's just right in the head, and he just goes down pain. Like, what the fuck, man?
and it's so elongated, too. Like it just keeps going and going and going. And those are some of my favorite fight scenes just in movies. The ones that are like silly and elongated and goofy, and not like they're not meant to like look cool. It's just like you're just watching a bunch of people get really hurt and just keep going,
And I feel like it's exactly what would happen if you get three super stoned dudes in a big fight.
Yeah, get in a
Just
fight.
grabbing
Yeah.
whatever they can. No idea how to actually like throw a punch or
Right.
anything. I think at one
Realizing
point,
realizing they have to fight for their lives and shit all of a sudden.
like at one point you just have Saul or not Saul Dale just with the bathroom door on top of Danny McBride. I'm trying to hold him down with his body weight because that's all he could do. It's
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah, and then that goes back to the whole idea is just like, how would you react to all these scenes if you're just super stoned, you're not really thinking straight, and you end up making a weird decision, and it goes like you have to just go with it, like later when the cop pulls up on Seth Rogen smoking, which is also another hilarious scene. She just pulls up on him and she's like, this shit hurts, this shit hurts. And she's being so like mean to him and stuff. And then he kind of confesses like about his whole situation, and she's about to like actually help him because she believes his side of the story. She like believes that Rosie Perez is like, she's like, I think I know who that bitch was. And he's like, yeah, I could identify that bitch. And she's about to like, look into it for him. She's like, and then like Saul ends up like, trying to like save him from it. But like, and then they end up in that wacky car chase scene where he has his foot, sticking out of the front, and he's just like driving the whole way through.
I love that scene where his foot's out of the windshield. And every time I watch it, I always try to imagine what it would be like to drive just with one foot out of the windshield, left foot trying to get everything else to work in the car while you're
right. You're trying. Yeah, you're and no one's used to driving with the left foot either. Eventually, they like decide to they like get in a fight, and he's like telling him that he tells him what we were saying before about like, I'm only friends with you because I like the drugs you sell. And they they end up like splitting up in the middle of this. And there's a scene where it's kind of memed a lot, I think, where Franco is on the swing and he's crying and the little girl's just watching him. And I think that's like a meme shot a lot of just Franco eating a sandwich, brutally crying.
Yeah, kind of this sad montage of the two of them really defeated.
Yeah,
sad, and I think is then Seth Rogen calling his girlfriend too at the same time.
right.
Yeah.
And I love this because we skipped over the all the Amber Heard stuff.
Yeah.
I think we should cover, which is it's very interesting, especially after what's happened with Amber Heard lately. But yeah, I don't know, it's so, I find the dating the high school girl thing at 25 like an interesting like character thing for Dale that he's insecure about. Like he's definitely always trying to get that out. He's like he says on the radio, like, I'm dating a high school girl, like some people, and no one ever is like bringing it up about him about how it's weird, but he's like, some people in society might look at that as weird, you know what I mean? And then he has to say to like Saul later, he's like, she's in high school, so and like, but all her friends do great impressions of Jeff Goldblum and stuff like that. And
fuck Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, fuck Jeff Goldblum, man. Yeah. And he actually like goes into the school, like he goes as far to visit his girlfriend as in going into the school to say hi to her and stuff. And yeah, and he has that great interaction with the comedic actor who's in everything.
Joe Lo Truglio.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And here's one of the lines I was trying to remember from earlier that is, I think I remember friends of mine would quote a lot, where it's like, I wish I didn't hear that, but I just heard that, when he tells him that like they're dating. I wish I hadn't heard that, but I just heard that. But then there is the dinner scene with the parents, which is another hilarious scene because he just kind of walks in. Like they don't even like answer the door for him. He just walks in and he's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be here for dinner. And like, yeah. And and he's like bleeding and dirty and stuff like that. And it's like, it's so hilarious because it's probably like the worst first impression you could have. Like for parents, it's like, I was in the woods, and he's like, all right, I'm cutting the shit. I witnessed, and he dumps the whole plot line of the movie on them. Like, I think that they've been following me, and I think they might have gone to my apartment, which has a lot of Angie's stuff, like her yearbook and everything, and I think they could find her here. And it's like the worst, thing to hear from the new boyfriend. And like Amber Heard just looks so like pissed and embarrassed that this is what he's bringing to the dinner.
Yeah, and the parents then go pretty extreme into
yeah, they're like hard-nosed conservative, like clearly,
mm-hmm.
like he's like, I'm coming back with a gun.
And then James Franco busts in and Amber Heard stabs him with a fork. And then it just gets chaotic and
right, he starts shooting at them, and he's like, I will fuck you in the street.
Oh, don't fuck us anywhere.
Don't fuck us anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, he just brings a hunting rifle like into the kitchen and starts playing.
Right.
Like it's so absurd that he just starts
fires in his
away.
own
home.
Yeah. There's no like get out or I'll shoot. He just starts just shooting away at them.
Yeah, right. There's no threat.
So it's like the parent, like every character is just so perfectly absurd that it just sort of fits in this world, that nobody's really like a normal everyday person.
It's all extreme. Yeah. Like what's funny is the funny joke is like after that, like they think even after being like, he tried to kill them, they're like, all right, I think we could probably hitch a ride with them. Like they're sitting in the back seat, like thinking we're gonna run away with the family, and then the dad's like, I didn't even why did you even think that's an option? And Seth's like, all right, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, well, and going back to absurd characters, the kid that they sell weed to, he's kind of like the leader of the gang. This kid is so good. Where they're like, do you want to buy some chronic? And he's like, and they're like, inhale, Chachi, inhale. And he's like, who the fuck's Chachi? And he's like this 14-year-old kid.
He's got like a New York accent too, and for some reason
he's very like Ralph Macchio or something like that, But all right, now we can connect it with the Amber Heard phone call. I think it's like hilarious how he's like crying, and he's like, he goes full in, and he's like, I just want to tell you I love you, blah blah blah. And then she's like, she says it back, and but then it cuts the like pumps the brakes. He's like, whoa, wait a minute, I just realized that if you still want to be with me after this, then you are far more immature than I realized, because I am such a mess.
He like finally comes to the conclusion that Angie has terrible taste in men.
Men him. Yeah. He's like, wait a second, if she wants to be with me, she is crazy then. Then it all builds to this a final like hurrah at this farmhouse where they grow all the marijuana, and Dale is saving Saul pretty much, and there's a giant action scene with guns, and Dale ends up saving Ted Jones, and he ends up rolling up there with Danny McBride, but Danny McBride he abandons him, and he's like he abandons he's like, I can't do this. Yeah, he says something like, my girlfriend's getting out of jail, I want to have sex with her.
I don't want to wake up murdered tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I don't want to wake up. This is not a practical decision.
Right after they're just like, I don't know, like showing off all these guns and like trying to look so cool. Right.
And like there's like Public Enemies playing, and they're like getting all jacked up to it, and Red for some reason has a lot of firearms. A lot of gun owners in this stoner movie.
Yeah. I love how just like we're kind of getting to this now, but just how funny everyone looks holding guns too. Like even Ted, like he's always got two guns, and he looks so goofy, walking around doing this. Yeah. Nobody looks like they're really like comfortable with a gun.
Like they're meant to be holding guns.
Yeah.
Right.
Know what they're doing really.
When they escape, like they're like between the weed plants, Seth is like holding an automatic like weapon, and he's just like firing it up into up at like the Asian guys or something, and it's like it's a toy gun or a toy weapon. Oh, and then there's a showdown between like Seth and Gary Cole and James Franco and Rosie Perez. And like Franco like straight up is like just punching Rosie Perez in the face, like not holding back on her at all. Yeah, all the action like is really fun. I like how I think that's what makes this movie really unique, is that it's not just a stoner movie. Like it's not just they add all the action elements and playing on the idea of the crime genre in this too.
And one of my favorite shots too is when Seth and Ted start going at it, and Seth like leaps from above, and he's like, it's kind of like slow motion, like he's like Batman or something, swooping down.
right.
It's like he's this like kind of chubby, just like stoner guy wearing his ridiculous like suit, and then he's just like jumping down, and
right.
Then it turns into the Matrix for a hot second. Yeah,
there is a lot of like other movie influence just jam packed into this. It's clearly like made by people who watch a lot of movies and like movies. Yeah, and Gary Cole as Ted Jones is really good in this. Gary Cole is also a legendary actor it just happens to be in this silly movie. Just like a legendary side actor like Kevin Corrigan just one of those guys who pops up, you know.
Yeah, I always enjoy him.
Yeah, same. Yeah, both of them have just like this great ability to be so like deadpan and like comedic, but then also in like more serious crime movies, you know, like Kevin Corrigan's in Goodfellas, and then Pineapple Express.
Right.
Yeah, and then after all this, Danny McBride, he returns, he comes back, drives his car through the barn.
He's like, Saul, I came back for you, Saul.
They have this like nice moment where they're like talking to each other about how much they appreciate each other and everything. And then who is it Rosie Perez that shoots him?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. While they're just in the middle of this nice moment.
Yeah, and there's some so unique to me about the final scene of this movie, where they end up they're injured, having breakfast, but it's like it's very everyday. It's a lot of jokes about being friends and stuff, but it's back to like just everyday like conversation and life about it. It's just a very unique dialogue scene that ends the movie, and then they just get picked up by Bubby or whatever, and they just get into the car, and she's like, "You guys smell like shit." And
I love that diner scene. It's
so
reminiscing.
Right. Yeah,
they're reminiscing as if they just went to Death Valley on a friend trip to Death Valley.
For real.
But it's like then they're like, man, some people get like a taste for murder, but I don't want to do that ever again. Yeah.
They're all reflecting on how many people they've killed.
Yeah.
How they don't want to get an instinct for that.
Yeah, right. They don't want to get a taste for blood. And Danny McBride's even like, I don't want to do that. I don't think I murdered anybody. He's like, no, you hit that guy with your car, like and he's like, oh yeah, I did murder that guy.
Yeah. And Seth's ear is like the way, like the whole his ear way it's peeled off the whole time, and he asks him at one point, is like, does it look cool or disgusting? And he's like, right now it's pretty disgusting.
That one scene where Saul's trying to like put the piece of his ear back in for him, it still just makes my skin crawl every time I watch it.
Yeah, and I love when they put their like hands in the middle, and Danny McBride is like falling asleep, and they don't know if he's like, is he dead or is he? And then like he wakes up and he's like, oh man, I'm like the nerd at the sleepover who can't stay awake.
Right. Oh yeah.
Clearly lost so much blood.
Yeah. He's like, how is he still alive? Yeah, it's that. I just love that whole gag throughout the movie of how Danny McBride is somehow still alive.
Yeah. It plays into the fact that why his character's so weird the whole time, because he's lightheaded, and he's clearly like he's injured from like opening scene, when he's like when they go to his house for the first time, and he's like, I'm trying to get a motherfucking scholarship, and he's like, but his face is like, he's trying to act all cool and stuff. He's like, what's up, players? But his like face is like, he's
All
clearly
busted.
been beat up all night, you know, like, and he's like, have you been crying? Is your face all right, man? And it only just gets worse because then they beat him up after that, and then Craig Robinson shoots him, and I don't know. It's so damn iconic, and this is such a beginning of like what was a like this kind of started a lot of these guys, you know, and really led to so much that came afterwards. Like we already talked about the Seth and Franco like partnership that was pretty like popular and fruitful for the early 2010s, and then you know, Danny McBride after this became, you know, he was so huge after this, and he did all of his series on HBO. And then Seth Rogen became like one of the biggest producers in Hollywood, and they had their own gang for a little bit, like for a while there. That's why like This Is the End ended up existing, and it all kind of goes back to this in a way, though. Like in the film This Is the End, they're like the most referenced thing arguably is Pineapple Express, probably.
Yeah, it's just funny how like they
yeah,
I like the ensemble that they keep, you know, bringing
that they
back
had.
in all
Yeah,
these,
that they had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not, they're not much of an ensemble anymore. Everyone ended up doing their own thing. But when it was the ensemble, it was like, it was good. It was nice. And like, it all kind of goes back to this movie because This Is the End, which is also very much a 420 movie. It brings back Craig Robinson, it brings back Danny McBride, you know, and like they even in the middle of This Is the End, I don't know if you guys remember, but they like, since they're like quarantined in it actually, which is kind of funny looking back on now, they like shoot Pineapple Express 2 while they're doing it, you know.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I don't know, watching this too is making me think about like, where are the big studio comedies nowadays, you know,
right, that are like
just,
this, you know, that are
yeah,
like this, that feel like they are made by like made in this way. They don't exist,
yeah,
unfortunately. And yeah, I mean, we could beat that point over the head, but yeah, like movies like these don't exist today at all.
the most recent one I can think of that kind of reminded me of this era is like Booksmart.
Yeah, for sure. That's
Yeah.
the super bad, the modern progressive girl super bad for sure.
Right. Yeah.
All right, but yeah, that's Pineapple Express. Our 420 episode. I've watched it on a many 420s. So, and I know a lot of people will be watching it again this upcoming 420. Yeah, 420 in general is it's a ridiculous holiday to exist, especially if you are a stoner, because you're like, even when I've been, you know, when I'm deep in my stoner ways, like I've always been like, I was even like self-aware, like, okay, but what is actually different? We're gonna smoke weed again. Like
that's what I did
like
on 419, 418 too.
like what we do every day. Like what is the
doing on
difference?
421.
Yeah, exactly. I even have had friends who go like, hey, on 4:20 p.m. we better be smoking like every day, and I'm like, no, we don't. We don't have to look at it like that.
That's some dedication.
Right.
Now that like weed is getting so much more, I don't know, all the stigma is away and everything, it's becoming like a more business thing now, you know, like Black Friday or something. Like businesses are now taking advantage of,
Right.
like even I work at a comedy club, and we, except for this year, we usually do like some sort of like 420 specific show, and it's like all just like to be a theme to get people, get stoners to, you know, come to a show. And Doug Benson always comes to town and something like that, you know.
Oh,
so
of course,
yeah.
Mr. Doug Benson,
The
the guy
famous Doug Benson.
Yeah.
the guy who's built a life around 420 all the time. Yeah, he makes
still
money.
Literally
makes
all
money
of his
off of it.
shows. All of his shows start at 420 too. That's yeah. It's just he's still milking it. Classic
I used
Doug,
to I used to watch a lot the show Getting Doug with High.
Yeah.
Where he just has different comedians on and they're smoking, and I mean, when you are smoking weed all the time, it is great, but sometimes it's so ridiculous. Like I remember it'd be like Joey Diaz was on the show, and Doug's just like, "What kind of weed do you like to smoke?" And Joey Diaz is like, "Usually I start my day with the bong, and then I go further." And I'm like, "Gosh, this guy's like in his 50s." Like, I used to like look at that. I'm like, "Oh, these guys are they're still doing it at 40. Maybe that'll be me one day. It's like I'll last that long, you know, and I'll still be going strong." Thank you, Nick, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Nick. Hey guys, it was great to be here.
You can come on other episodes that aren't 420 related. Feel free. I don't want to just put you in that box.
Yeah, dude, I've been doing a bunch of like historical war dramas lately, or, like just historical dramas and stuff that's like happened in our life that I just never paid attention to when I was a kid.
Oh, like movies?
Yeah, it's been an interesting.
Which ones?
So I don't know, like some of the Tom Hanks ones. Like I watched Captain Phillips. Like yeah, just filling in on some of those things. I don't know, it's been interesting.
Captain Phillips is very intense.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end in the claustrophobic, when they're in the little like sub scene, like that's like so intense and real.
Yeah, and a lot of it like went over my head at the time when it first came out. It was like I didn't really get that like there was a bunch of guys doing their everyday job out in the ocean, and then they get hijacked by some pirates. Like it really was incredible that Captain Phillips was able to keep them all safe. They all got out of there alive.
Yeah.
Like, and just, how intense that whole situation would be in reality.
Yeah, no, it's really an insane thing to happen in the world. That's a thing that happens. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's been a really fun kick going into those historical dramas. Just kind of getting other looks at things that happen in our lives.
Become more aware of things.
Trying to educate myself a bit.
Is there another one?
So I did those two. I can't think of any other ones. But like another, not in our lifetime, but another interesting one I watched was Race, like the Jesse Owens story. With Jason Sudeikis playing the coach in there. And that one I just thought it was really well made.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, very very interesting dynamic. Just when they go over to Germany for the Olympics during the Nazi regime, you just kind of see what the Nazis were doing at the time to try and hide all the atrocities they were committing and just like make sure America would participate. And then you see Jesse Owens go and absolutely destroy in all his events, and it's great. It's a very good feel-good movie.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I love Jason Sudeikis, so I'll watch anything the man does. Die for that man. I hope everyone has a good 420. I will personally not be smoking weed this 420, so I hope everyone acting like. I love how this one episode we're acting like it's only stoners that listen to this one. This is the only stoner episode we're done, but that's what this is this time. Everyone can light it one up for me, I guess. I still think there's a lot of marijuana toxins in me that I am coughing out, as if you guys can't tell, as I continue on this road of no weed. Like I'll still have the cough, and I'm like, yeah, it's from 10 years of smoking weed, you know.
It's always a part of you.
Right, yeah, it still hasn't left me yet. I have a little bit ways to go.